Good Friday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We begin with breaking news on the war in Ukraine. Overnight, concerns over a possible nuclear disaster. This video shows heavy shelling by Russian forces on a nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine. The bombardment caused a fire that was later put out. Ukraine's nuclear agency says Russian forces now occupy the facility. And the International Atomic Energy Agency says while radiation levels are normal, quote, the physical integrity of the plant has been compromised. This latest development comes as Russia is intensifying its attack on key cities in Ukraine's south and that massive convoy of tanks north creeping toward the capital, Kyiv.
As the fighting rages on, the situation on the ground is growing more dire. Ukrainian officials say Russia has agreed on humanitarian corridors for civilians looking to escape. More than 1 million have made it out already, many heartbroken to leave home.
I'm adoring my city. For me, it's best city. So beautiful, with a lot of parks and cinema and theater. And now everything broke. It's crazy. There is everything broke. Everything.
After a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday, French President Emmanuel Macron is now warning that the worst is yet to come. With negotiations going nowhere, a growing humanitarian crisis, and advancing Russian troops, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had this message.
It's not about I want to talk with Putin. I think I have to talk with Putin. The world has to talk with Putin because there are no other ways to stop this war.
We begin our coverage this morning with that news that Russian forces have captured Europe's largest nuclear power plant after Russian shelling ignited a fire at the facility. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin reports from western Ukraine.
Hey, Joe and Savannah, all eyes on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which supplies about a quarter of this country's power, now under Russian occupation after fierce fighting between Ukrainian and Russian forces yesterday. A fire broke out at a training building on the site. That fire has since been extinguished, and according to officials, radiation levels remain stable. This as Russian forces continue to occupy the port city of KHERSON, a city of some 300,000, the first city to fall to Russian forces in Putin's war. We've been speaking to residents there who are absolutely terrified. Yesterday was the first day they felt safe enough to leave their homes. We're speaking to one resident who wants to be known as Jimmy. He asked that we conceal his identity for fear of Russian reprisal. He described what he saw. Take a listen.
We all took a walk today, and what we've seen were deserted streets, queues at ATM machines. Maybe 3% of all shops were open, and they wouldn't have enough food in them. Despite some bombing, which happened during the takeover, I could call it a silent takeover. We probably lost our town to the enemy, but majority thinks it's a temporary, and we have to hold on until the Ukrainian army frees us.
I was speaking to another man here in Lviv who is very worried about his mother. She's in Kherson. He says that she's been working and helping the military, and he's very concerned she's going to be detained. He doesn't know how she's going to get out. Right now in Lviv, he's trying to get his wife and children over the border into Poland, and then he's going to make his way back to Kherson to try and save his mother. One of many desperate stories we're hearing about in Ukraine. Guys.
All right, Aaron, thank you. Let's get more on that nuclear plant attack with Andrew Weber. He's a senior fellow at the Council on Strategic Risks and the former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear, Chemical, and Biological Defense Programs under President Obama. Andrew, thanks for joining us. We should remind our viewers this fire has been put out. Authorities say the site has been made safe. Still, this is Europe's largest nuclear power plant. Can we breathe much of a sigh of relief here? And just how dangerous could this have been?
No, we can't breathe a sigh of relief. This was a totally planned attack on a nuclear power plant, actually 6 reactors at this facility. It provides 25% of the power to Ukraine. And to attack it, apparently, including with shells and cause a fire, it's absolutely outrageous. So this is potentially very, very dangerous. Imagine the reactor staff now. Essentially, they're hostages and we have to rely on them to safely operate the plant. So this was just another example of Russia's 19th century brutal form of warfare that has to stop.
What is your biggest fear here now moving forward, especially with this plant?
Well, the biggest fear with this plant is that the operators won't be on site, or they were killed or injured. And I'm sure that the Russian military did not bring along a staff to operate such a facility. So if their intent is to shut off a big chunk of Ukraine's electricity, it will take skilled staff to turn the reactor down in a safe way. And I don't believe they have a plan for that. So it is a risky time. And thank goodness so far there doesn't appear to be any radiation release.
Andrew, Ukraine has a couple other nuclear plants dotted around the country. Do you think Russia could be eyeing those other sites as part of its strategy? And how do we know, does this capture benefit Russia's plans?
Well, it's not unusual in military campaigns to take out a country's electricity and power supply to reduce their fighting capabilities. But it is very unusual to go after nuclear power plants. So this is really unprecedented and extremely dangerous. And we need to have a ceasefire, and the plant needs to be given back to Ukrainian control so that the skilled staff there can operate it safely.
Andrew Weber, thanks so much for joining us this morning to help us better understand this unfolding situation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, of course, all this fighting is impacting real people. Russia's invasion has upended the lives of Ukrainians, forcing them out of their homes and into any kind of shelter to stay safe. Z. Gaiman has been taking shelter inside a church basement in Ukraine with her 2 children for a week, and she joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your time, especially right now. So first, just tell us, how are you? How are your children doing right now? And do you feel safe where you are?
Safe is a relative term right now. We're alive and well. I keep posting on Facebook the updates, and that's the standard phrase that I say, that we're alive, because there's no guarantee we will wake up in the morning. The shelling continues pretty much all day. There are 8 strike alarms pretty much all day long. Right now is actually an airstrike alarm going off right here. The families are scared. Many don't know whether they should leave or stay. So that's the main question that many people are facing, because many family husbands can't leave because there is general mobilization, and many people don't want to leave without their spouses. So for me personally, that's my choice to stay here, because my husband is currently serving in territorial defense. So it's very important for me to be close. And yeah, especially in time like that.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about your husband. I know he did volunteer to be part of the Ukrainian defense team. How's that been for you? I mean, I know we're all looking on just in awe of the resilience of your country, of Ukrainian people. What's it like, though, personally right now? Have you spoken to your husband at all? And just how's this impacted you and your kids?
We try to, I have seen him 3 times since the start of the war last Thursday. Both times, like all 3 times, it was just for a few minutes when he stopped by for supplies like sleeping bags for his team, because at first they were really not supplied with basic necessities. Now the situation changed, thank God, but it's hard. Every 2 to 3 days, I break down crying because I just have no idea whether the next strike will hit where he is. So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. What's it been like trying to talk to your kids about what's going on?
I try to be honest. I tried to tell them that this is war. But at the same time, I tried to tell them the reasoning behind us staying and why we're staying here, that Dad is doing okay. He keeps sending messages, even if it's a smiley, whenever he has access to his phone and whenever he has time. So we try to manage it like that.
See, Guyman, thank you so much. We are thinking about you. We will check in with you. And as you said, it's a relative term right now, but stay safe, and we'll be thinking about your family.
Thank you. Yep.
Let's head to Moscow and NBC News global correspondent Raf Sanchez. So, Raf, in televised remarks yesterday, Russian President Putin said his military operation in Ukraine is going to plan. But inside Ukraine, that does not exactly seem to be the case, especially in the first few days of this. What else is Putin saying about this invasion so far?
Joe, Vladimir Putin presented a version of reality yesterday that just does not match up with what our teams are seeing on the ground. He talked about Russian forces fighting against neo-Nazi Ukrainians being supported by mercenaries from the Middle East who are holding Ukrainian civilians hostage. Now, what we are seeing is Ukrainian population rallying against this Russian invasion, in some cases literally throwing themselves in front of Russian tanks to stop their advance. One of the most discouraging notes we heard from President Putin yesterday wasn't actually in that speech, but it was in a readout of a call he had with President Emmanuel Macron of France, where he said this special military operation, that's how the Kremlin refers to the invasion of Ukraine, will continue until all of its goals are met. And the reason that's so discouraging is Russian and Ukrainian negotiators are meeting, and in theory, they are trying to hammer out some kind of ceasefire, some kind of peace deal. But President Putin seems to be suggesting that his forces will continue to advance, and he says he will not allow the Ukrainians to play for time at the negotiating table. Joe?
Yeah, let's talk more about those talks between Russian and Ukrainian officials. Not a lot of progress. Both countries did tentatively agree on establishing what are known as humanitarian corridors. Tell us, what exactly does that mean, and do we have any idea if more talks could be coming?
Yeah, so humanitarian corridors would basically be kind of localized ceasefires in very specific areas that would be designed to allow civilians to leave the area and to allow food and medical aid to come in. Now, there's a certain irony to humanitarian corridors. It obviously sounds extremely desirable, and from the perspective of the Ukrainian government, they want those corridors to try to get their people safe. But the Russians may also have a vested interest in these humanitarian corridors because they ideally would like as few civilians inside of the Ukrainian cities as possible, because that way they can attack, they can use heavier weaponry without being as concerned about killing civilians and drawing in the world's condemnation. In terms of the next round of talks, round 3, the Russians say there will be another round sometime next week. We don't have exact timing. We don't know where. Joe?
All right, Raf Sanchez in Moscow. Raf, thank you.
NBC News military analyst Colonel Jack Jacobs joins us now. Colonel, good morning. So I do want to start with what happened overnight at that nuclear plant in southern Ukraine. So it caught fire, as we've mentioned, during this heavy Russian shelling. And after it was put out, Ukrainian nuclear officials said the plant is now occupied by Russian forces. This is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, and it's one of several in Ukraine. How concerned should we be about this latest development? I mean, when you hear that this is the type of site that they've taken over, what does it make you think?
Well, there were two things right away. First of all is the violence with which it was taken. And Andrew Weber, your previous guest, who's an expert in these things, enumerated a number of horrifying things that could happen and could have happened. Now that the Russians have it, the most significant thing from that standpoint is their inability to actually run it properly, and the fact that they need the Ukrainian experts there in order to continue to run it. Don't forget, I can't remember what percentage he said this of the electricity in Ukraine it delivers, but it's a significant percentage of it. So whether to continue to run it, that requires Ukrainian expertise, because the Russians certainly don't have it, or to shut it down, that requires Ukrainian expertise. It is not entirely clear whether or not the Ukrainians who are capable of running it or shutting it down are there. The second thing is that if they're not there, it's a very, very dangerous situation. You don't just turn a switch and turn it off, because that could cause a nuclear incident. The other thing is that the Russians probably want to shut it down because they want to deprive all of Ukraine with utilities. And so their objective is to shut it down altogether, which is why they wanted to secure it in the first place. And so it's very concerning. With respect to the videos that we've seen, we saw tracers, the firefight that was taking place there on the site. That large ball of light that you saw coming down, that was an aerial flare dropped by aircraft so that the Russians can see the Ukrainians who were defending it. That's a fire. Its whole purpose is to light it up, and when it hits the ground, it sets fire to things. It's an extremely reckless and dangerous situation, still, because the Russians are not capable of running this site, Samantha.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have another question for you. This one's actually from a viewer, not about nuclear power, but nuclear weapons. So President Putin, we remember, ordered Russia's nuclear forces to be put on high alert. Now, a viewer, Jamie Diaz, asks, what if the Kremlin does end up using nuclear bombs in Ukraine or any other countries? What would be the next move for the UN or the United States? Obviously, this is an extreme next steps down the road. But what do you say to that, Colonel?
Well, the UN doesn't have anything at its disposal, so we can forget about that. I don't think we have a plan B with respect to the use of tactical nuclear weapons by the Russians. I guess we can impose more economic strictures on them. I think our allies and others who have not yet done so will do so. I think he's disinclined to use weapons of any kind, tactical nuclear weapons, and certainly not strategic nuclear weapons. Among other things, his great pal at the moment, who's keeping some distance, is China. And China has already started to sort of distance themselves. I think that it's always possible that he may use tactical nuclear weapons. I think it's highly unlikely.
Colonel Jack Jacobs, thank you so much. As always, we so appreciate your analysis when you join us.
Sure.
As Russia intensifies those air and ground assaults against Ukrainian cities, more than 1 million refugees have already fled the country. UNICEF estimates children make up half that number, a number that is growing by the hour. NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber joins us now from the Poland-Ukraine border, where so many of these displaced families are arriving. Ellison, good morning to you. So the UN has estimated this war could ultimately displace 4 million Ukrainians. So what preparations are being made there to try and take care of so many people? How organized is the response?
It's very much a work in progress, and I'll break down a little for you some of what we've seen here. But you mentioned how so many of the refugees are believed to be children. That's what we've seen as we've been out here the last few days reporting. This is our 5th border stop on the Poland-Ukrainian border, and you see all these faces of children, and you talk to some of them. Imagine with me for a minute that you are 8 or 9 years old. You have been just a few days ago at home playing with friends, drawing with chalk on the sidewalk, and then in an instant you are forced to go and hide in bomb shelters. You have to frantically pack everything you own or what little you can carry with you, say goodbye to your brother who is then going to stay and fight in a war, and then flee with your mother to a completely new country. For most of us, we cannot even imagine that. But here in this makeshift refugee camp, that is a story that many people have different versions of. We met one little girl in this tent. She's 8 years old. Her name is Angelina. She was living in Kyiv, and she had to flee here. Listen to what she told us.
What was it like for you when you were at home and you heard all the noises?
Як тобі було вдома, коли почалася оця страшна подія?
Дуже сильно страшно.
It was really scary. And then, when my mommy comforted me, it was all good.
What did you say to your brother when he...
Що ти сказала своїм братам, коли ти залишала їх в Україні?
Я сказала своєму брату,
I told my brother,
братик, я тебе очень
my brother,
сильно люблю.
I really love you. I love you very, very much.
You're very brave. Did you know
Ти
you were
дуже
so
смілива.
brave?
Ти знаєш, що ти дуже смілива?
Да.
Yes, I am.
What do you want other kids who are
Що ти
watching
хочеш
this to know?
сказати іншим дітям, які будуть тебе слухати зараз?
Я хочу, щоб вони не переживали.
I want them not to be afraid and not to worry. I want them to listen to their parents because their parents love them more than anyone else.
This is one of the most organized assistance areas we've seen. We watched as electricians came and ran cables up every single power pole, putting in electrical outlets so people can charge their phones so they can get heat to these tents. Most of these tents, they are heated. There is food, coats, water, really most anything anyone would need immediately. We were speaking to the people who are organizing and running this site. This is done by the local government. And they said in terms of food, in terms of blankets, strollers, you can see how many strollers there are there. Another reminder of how many children are impacted by this. They say they have enough donations, but the biggest challenge right now is transportation. People are coming to these border crossings and they might not have family or anyone they can go stay with in cities. They need to get to other areas where there are more places for them to stay, but they need rides to do that. Warsaw is about 4 hours away from here, so having transportation and drivers to take people, that's a huge hurdle. Joe?
So many hurdles, but I concur. Angelina is very brave. Ellison, thank you so much for that report. We really do appreciate it.
And we'll have more coverage out of Ukraine just ahead, but we're also following other news this morning, including an NBC News exclusive. Former Attorney General Bill Barr speaking out about his dealings with former President Trump.
And I told him that all this stuff was bullshit and about election fraud.
Up next, our own Lester Holt joins us with that interview, the first since Barr resigned as Attorney General.
And New York City on edge after a string of subway attacks across the city. A look at the problem and what's being done to keep passengers safe. You're watching Morning News Now. Welcome back. The latest out of Ukraine just ahead, including the situation at a nuclear power plant that caught fire overnight. It's now under the control of Russian forces. But we also want to get you caught up on some of the other big stories this morning, including a big headline out of Kentucky. A police officer involved in the raid that left Breonna Taylor dead has been found not guilty of wanton endangerment. Former Louisville police officer Brett Hankerson was acquitted Thursday. The 3 counts of wanton endangerment were not connected directly to Taylor's death nearly 2 years ago. Rather, he was accused of endangering the lives of a neighboring family when he fired shots that went into their apartment. Hankerson's defense argued he was defending his fellow officers. Taylor was killed in March 2020 during a botched police raid. Hankerson is the only officer involved in the raid who has ever been charged with anything, and no charges were ever filed directly relating to Taylor's death.
Now, crime in New York City's subway system has surged in recent weeks, even after Mayor Eric Adams started a new plan to send more cops and mental health workers into the stations to help fight the problem. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson has more.
Major crimes on New York City transit up 30% this week, even after the mayor's subway safety plan went into effect.
I have seen a slight increase in the police presence.
Do you feel safer?
No.
I feel fine. A little. The safety plan announced 2 weeks ago sent 1,000 more police officers and teams of health workers into the city's subway system.
Public safety and justice, they are the prerequisite to prosperity.
While enforcement has gone up, with the NYPD reporting 64% more arrests since the week before, according to NBC New York, crime remains a problem. In Queens, a 57-year-old woman was viciously attacked with a hammer and robbed as she entered a subway station.
She told me she had been telling the perpetrator, stop, but apparently he just kept hitting her over the head and then ran off with the bag.
Police arrested 57-year-old William Blount days later on an attempted murder charge. We could not immediately reach Blount or his attorney for comment, and on the day the plan went into effect, a man smeared human feces in a 43-year-old woman's face at a Bronx subway station.
That's an horrific experience for anyone to go through. Human waste, and someone spitting in your face, those are real signs of mental health issues.
The alleged perpetrator, 37-year-old Frank Abrokwa, now facing a slew of charges, including assault, according to court documents released on his own recognizance, prompting outrage. The Bronx District Attorney's Office telling NBC News they requested Abrokwa be held on bail and supervised release, but the judge denied both. Abrokwa is also facing hate crime charges for a prior incident in Brooklyn. He's on supervised release for that. His attorney had no comment without Abrokwa's consent.
I do not understand why the MTA cannot ban people like that guy who had 3 priors. We take away driver's licenses for, one drunk driving episode.
Overall, major crimes on transit so far this year are in line with 2016 to 2019 statistics, according to the NYPD, although ridership is still down significantly. Why are people like this being released?
As disgusting as this crime was, it didn't fall within any of the other categories of what that bail would be required.
Joseph GIACALONE is a retired NYPD sergeant and professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. He says addressing crime on the trains begins above ground.
Just about every one of these cases has to deal with somebody who is homeless and has done something terrible. Historically, when I was a cop back in the day, the homeless people complained that the shelters weren't safe. Well, they need to fix that, and they needed to fix that yesterday.
Our thanks to Priscilla Thompson for that report.
Former Attorney General William Barr often stood at the center of storms that engulfed the Trump presidency.
Yeah, now he's revealing what it was like to work for the former president inside the White House and what ultimately tore them apart. NBC Nightly News anchor Lester Holt joins us now on set with more on his experience with this exclusive interview with the former Attorney General. Thanks, Lester. Hi.
Yeah, Savannah and Joe, good to see both of you. In his new memoir, One Damn Thing After Another, Barr opens up about the former president and the criticisms that Barr sometimes acted more as the former president's personal lawyer rather than attorney general. And he addresses how their relationship came to an abrupt end. Take me back to that day, December 1st. You're in the SUV. Did you know you were going to end up in the Oval Office before the day was up?
I assumed I was.
Attorney General Bill Barr knew he had infuriated the president. Since election night, Trump had been insisting he'd won.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country.
At that point,
Barr knew that wasn't true. He'd even had the Justice Department investigate. Now, he was being summoned to the president's private dining room after saying in an interview with the AP that Trump's claims of election fraud were wrong.
And I told him that all this stuff was bullshit and about election fraud. And, it was wrong to be shoveling it out the way his team was.
He also told Trump what he thought of his legal team. Not a lot.
I said, the reason you are where you are is because you wheeled out a clown show of lawyers.
A clown show?
Yeah, clown car or something like that. I said, it's just a bunch of clowns.
Who are you referring to? Rudy Giuliani?
His Cracker Jack legal team, among others.
Barr says the president shot back, listing the ways he said Barr had failed him. That's when Barr says he offered up his resignation.
I said, okay, well, look, I understand you're upset with me, and I'm perfectly happy to tender my resignation. And then, boom.
He slaps the desk.
He slapped the desk, and he said, accepted, accepted. And then, boom, he slapped it again, accepted. Go home. Don't go back to your office. Go home. You're done.
When we asked the former president about this meeting, he disputed Barr's account and told us he was the one who demanded Barr's resignation. Either way, Barr handed in a resignation letter 2 weeks later and has not spoken with Donald Trump since. He does not want him to run for president again. January 6th, the riot. Do you think that President Trump was responsible for what happened here ultimately?
I do think he was responsible in the broad sense of that word, and that it appears that part of the plan was to send this group up to the Hill. I think the whole idea was to intimidate Congress, and I think that was wrong.
In a 3-page letter to NBC News, President Trump trashed Barr's book as fake and hurled personal insults at his former attorney general, calling him a coward, a big disappointment,
and lazy.
Lester, why didn't the former Attorney General speak out sooner about election concerns, about January 6th? I mean, we're over a year down the road. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I pushed him on that. And I said, you were in a position of influence, and you had this opinion that it was fake, and maybe you could have short-circuited what ultimately happened on the January 6th. His feeling was it was already out there, that it was baked in. He blamed the people that surrounded the president of really kind of, sending him down this rabbit hole.
Lester, thank you so much. Great to have you on set with us, and great to have this exclusive interview. You can watch the full interview tonight. Bill Barr in the Eye of the Storm, this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC.
Let's get a check on your morning news now weather.
Bill Cairns joins us now. Hey, Bill.
Hey, good morning. That's must-watch TV Sunday night. Going to have to sit down with the family on that one. Let's go and take a look at this forecast. We have record highs this weekend, so you get to play all day Sunday in the heat, and then you can go inside and watch that later Sunday night. Because, we are going to see some extraordinarily warm temperatures for the East Coast this weekend. Everywhere from about Texas to the eastern seaboard, this tropical moisture is going to head all the way to the north. Even into northern Vermont, we'll have a chance for some record highs, 15 to 30 degrees warmer than normal. And as far as records go, every city with a dot on this map has a chance to break a record high this weekend. Most of those in the northeast and northern portions of New England, that would be on Sunday. So how warm will it get? We start today, 70s, mid-70s in areas like Oklahoma, 80s in Alabama and Mississippi. And then tomorrow, we see temperatures as warm as mid-70s, Kansas City, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Lexington, Louisville, everyone. Nashville's included too. And then finally, by the time we get to Sunday, that warmth makes it to the mid-Atlantic. Look at Raleigh, 80s on Sunday and Monday. D.C. is going to be upper 70s Sunday, Monday. New York, it looks like into the 60s on Sunday and Monday. And Boston, probably in the 50s. So here's your weekend forecast. And unfortunately, for our friends in the West, we're still dealing with stormy weather. And this snowstorm, yes, snowstorm, will be moving through the higher elevations of the Rockies and into the northern plains Saturday into Saturday night. It does look like a chance of some isolated severe storms in Iowa Saturday. So for my friends from the Quad Cities, Cedar Rapids, all the way through Des Moines, heads up for you. And then on Sunday, along with that warm temperatures, will come a little bit of rain shower activity in New England. Heavier rains and thunderstorms from Little Rock to Memphis up to areas around Paducah. And then we're still seeing more snow in areas of the West. So we'll have a snowstorm this weekend. We'll have numerous record highs, maybe a tornado or two. That's early spring for you guys. You got a little bit of everything.
No kidding, a little bit of everything. The roller coaster, as you like to say.
We need that roller coaster video again that you guys bring us sometimes. Thanks, Bill.
See, you like that stuff.
Coming up, displaced and desperate to escape war. Up next, a look at the efforts to help more than 1 million refugees forced to flee their homes as Russia attacks Ukraine.
And it's not just Ukrainians. People from all over the world looking to be rescued from the war in Ukraine. Now their home countries are stepping in. That's next on Morning News Now.
This morning, we want to take a closer look at the relief efforts underway in Europe to help the estimated 1 million refugees displaced so far by the war in Ukraine.
500,000 of those refugees are children, according to UNICEF, and these numbers are growing by the day. They'll likely continue to grow over the weeks and months to come.
Joining us now is Nancy Dent, Senior Communications Officer for the International Rescue Committee, one of the many organizations on the ground in the region. Nancy, good to have you with us. So just tell us more about your operation there in Poland and the region, and help us understand just how bad this crisis has become.
Sure, thank you so much for having me. So the International Rescue Committee has been here on the ground in Poland since early February. We've been scoping out various scenarios, to see what the worst case could be and how humanitarian actors could step in. We're currently supporting local organizations who really understand the local communities and have been supporting people as they flee for many weeks now. And people, when they arrive on the border, they might be in a reception point, which has got beds, camp beds type things set up, and it's quite organized, and people can have a sleep, they can rest, they can either stay for a couple of nights, or they might stay for a couple of hours and then move on into Poland, where they might have families, friends, people that they can stay with. And the IRC is working with these local organizations, and we're providing non-food items, so things like blankets, sleeping bags, things that will really help people stay warm and feel protected once they've arrived in Poland.
Absolutely. Nancy, I'd also like to get your reaction to the news about these humanitarian corridors, which would allow more civilians to evacuate Ukraine safely. How does this change things for your organization, and how are you preparing for the estimated millions more Ukrainians who are expected to flee?
Exactly. I mean, the news for the humanitarian corridors is so recent, and we do welcome it as a first step in kind of providing safety to those people who are currently trapped in makeshift bomb shelters in metro stations, as we've all seen. You know, these humanitarian corridors aren't a permanent solution. You know, what we really need in terms of safety is a ceasefire and a political settlement. But right now, the humanitarian corridors will mean that people can make informed decisions about whether they want to stay or remain inside Ukraine. But that can only happen if there are security guarantees, which mean that people can leave and not be at risk of getting caught in any more violence. And we also need to have clear communications on the objectives. Why are these humanitarian corridors being put in place? How long are they going to last for? And also, how are they going to be implemented so that people can feel safe if they do try to leave?
Nancy, we also want to ask you, I mean, we're hearing reports of discriminatory treatment, even racist abuse against people of color who've been trying to flee Ukraine. We're a little tight on time here, but what have you heard about this, and what would you like to see done to just make sure everyone who wants to get out safely can?
These reports are extremely troubling. At the border points where IRC have been scoping out our response, we have seen lots of people of different nationalities, including some Syrians and some Afghans. And I think, you know, we can say that the situation has improved drastically in Poland, but that doesn't mean it's not happening in other places. And we continue to call for safe and regular pathways for everybody, regardless of their race, color, or creed.
Nancy, thank you so much for joining us and for everything you're doing to try and help these millions of people who are going to need help in the coming weeks and months. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Now, as this refugee crisis unfolds in Ukraine's neighboring countries, it's seen over 1 million run from war. Well, those refugees are not just Ukrainians. They're people from all over the world, including Latin America, and governments are stepping in to try to rescue their countrymen and women from the devastation. Here's NBC News correspondent Isa Gutierrez with more.
A Mexican Air Force plane carrying dozens of Mexican nationals and their families who lived in Ukraine headed one way to Mexico City.
Estar en un resguardo de bombas todos los días, pues es difícil estar escuchando las bombas, los disparos en la ciudad.
University student Guillermo Padilla boarding the plane in Romania with at least 80 others who, like him, crossed the border out of Ukraine earlier this week. They're part of a group of Mexican nationals that the Mexican government says they'll bring over 6,000 miles back home. The country's Secretary of Foreign Affairs tweeting Thursday morning about the operation. But for most Mexican refugees, Ukraine had become a new home.
Esta es la bandera del país que me ha dado todo por 10 años.
Before the war broke out last week, over 200 Mexicans were living in Ukraine. And while some gratefully look forward to new beginnings,
I want to see Mexico.
Others, like Larissa Garcia, who's been living in Ukraine for 27 years, say they won't be going back to Mexico.
Es una invasión.
Latin American countries like Peru, Brazil, and Argentina also working to get hundreds of their nationals to safety.
Aqui, brasileiros, estamos bem, eles seguem para Polônia, para Romênia.
They bring with them the few belongings they could carry, and memories of war they say they'll never forget.
Retumba todo, las ventanas, las casas, piensas que están cerca de ti.
Mis estudiantes están en búnkeres ahora. Mis mejores amigas están en búnkeres ahora.
Isa Gutierrez, NBC News.
Coming up, our breaking news coverage continues on the invasion in Ukraine.
Yeah, up next, expert analysis on Russia's military advancement following the Russian attack on that nuclear power plant. This is Morning News Now.
Welcome back. Let's return to our top story this morning.
Ukrainian authorities say Russian forces have seized one of the country's nuclear power plants, and it happens to be Europe's largest. A fire broke out at the site, which Ukraine has blamed on heavy Russian shelling. Officials say the fire, though, is out and the facility is safe this morning. Let's get more on this and the overall Russian military strategy with Clint Watts. He's a distinguished research fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute and an NBC News national security analyst. Clint, good morning. Good to have you with us and have you at this big board to walk us through this. So how does this capture of this nuclear power plant play into Russia's wider military strategy? We saw them take the defunct Chernobyl site, but that was on the road to Kyiv. So what's this about here now, and how important is this moment?
Yeah, significant for three different reasons. When we look at this nuclear plant, we heard about the firefight that was happening overnight. You saw some of the videos that were coming around that area. It really comes down to three things. One is control. The Russians want to take control of power because they're doing siege warfare. Much like you see in Mariupol and some of these cities, they want to cut the power, they want to destroy the infrastructure, a way to essentially take control of the population. The second is psychological. In Russian doctrine, especially in the disinformation space, using fear of nuclear is a way to essentially message both abroad and at home that the Ukrainians might be up to something. It's essentially a disinformation ploy to really bring everyone under the banner. And the third one, which I want to mention, is we forget that nuclear power plants are infrastructure points for all sorts of logistics. Logistics is something the Russians are struggling with. A railhead here is very important for the Russians with their armor units, because if they can seize these and outside of major urban centers that could come under attack, they can begin to put things like armored vehicles onto rail cars and sort of move them around the country much, much faster and a lower cost. I think the bigger picture of what we're seeing right now is the South. What really wasn't talked about in the first week, we focused on the North and the convoy, their struggles in the Russian military. What we see now is the South is really where they're taking hold. These are the units out of Crimea, which was seized in 2014. They have advanced on Mariupol, and you're seeing siege warfare, indirect fires, destructive attacks, total infrastructure breakdown. Mariupol is, I think, a forecast of what we might see in Kyiv over time. Separate is this advance in Kherson. You probably saw that they took a bridge. They've essentially been able to advance. That's the mouth of the Dnieper River coming off the Black Sea. This is a very important logistical point. And once they get to the west side, what you're seeing today are some battles as they move to this next bridgehead here over this next estuary. If they can get past that, essentially from that point forward, all the way to the Moldovan border, they can cut off and essentially encircle Odessa, which is a major port city that is a logistical hub, but also one where they can bring in additional combat power over the next few days. So that's going to be a significant issue that pops up. The Southern battle plan, while it was stalled a little bit in the beginning, is really starting to take off for the Russians, and it will give them a real logistical boost.
Yeah, and Clint, how does that help them then with the goal of trying to get into the capital of Kyiv? What's happening in that part of the country?
So this is the bigger picture. They started off with a very bold plan that was designed to be done in a week. They failed with that. It was a three-front fight. They pushed into Sumy here, the convoy area, which we know about coming in from Belarus, and then the southern front. Overall, though, what they're trying to do is essentially cut Ukraine in half. The Dnieper River, which we were talking about just before, runs roughly like this up to Kyiv. If they can get to the west side here, they can start to encircle all the way around and from the south. And if they can cut off all the way to the west, if they've lost the sea, Ukraine can't resupply here in the south. This leaves only land resupply, which is much more difficult. And then that brings into the case of what Russia would do then. That really pulls NATO, Russia, and the U.S. closer into conflict over time. Ultimately, the siege of Kyiv could go on for many weeks, if not months.
Yeah, and Clint, let's connect that back to what you just mentioned a minute ago, which I think, as I asked at the top, as people are wondering, oh my goodness, this nuclear power plant, we saw that flare drop down, there's a fire there, the potential danger that was, and why would they do that? You bring up these good points about the logistical aspect of it beyond just what the actual facility is known for. We know that this convoy has had trouble around Kyiv, logistical issues of its own. They've had these fueling issues, and they've also been, they've been resisted in a way by Ukrainian forces. When you talk about that railhead that they'd be able to have there, and we know that they've had trouble moving around, we know that their vehicles can't work well through the mud, through the countryside. What does that ultimately mean, the contact between the northern part of the country, potentially even the western part? We think about Lviv, that has been sort of this safe haven, mean when they get logistical, strategically smart points like that?
Yeah, so there's several things to always think about: airfields, railheads, and rail lines, and securing them in between cities. This convoy, as you see right here, notice the spacing. This is a convoy that's not worried about airstrikes or air power. If they were, they'd be much more disciplined. This is not the Soviet army that I learned about when I was at West Point. What you're seeing here is, in terms of these logistics, is they're starting to build up combat power. When you look at where they're at now, as they bring this in, they will have several different enlargements, which they can focus on, which will then control the rear area. The big mistake of this plan, if you fail in the first week, is you have major population centers behind your rear lines, and everything in the fight from here on out is about food, fuel, and ammunition. Russia's ability to do that versus Ukraine's. And this is where, as they build out this enlargement, you'll see here and from here, once they start to unify these, they now can bring in massive amounts of logistics much, much quicker. Meanwhile, Ukraine's ability to resupply and all of those classes of supply will go down. And so a war of attrition will essentially set in. I think it's going to be a tough, tough slog. And it really comes down to the question is, what will the West do? Are we going to let this happen slowly and watch the entire country really fall into Russia's hands?
Wow. All right. Clint Watts, thank you so much. Really great information there. And obviously a lot to keep our eyes on. This was great to have you there. Thanks. Coming up, the war in Ukraine making an impact on the world of sports.
Up next, more on how athletes and organizations are weighing in on the violence. You're watching Morning News Now. In the sports world this week, we're hearing a different kind of rallying cry. We're hearing calls for Ukraine's freedom.
More athletes and organizations are speaking out against the Russian invasion of the country by the day. Here's NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky.
The international sports arena sounding off, responding firmly to the war in Ukraine.
I believe that sport is a platform where which can help to spread good word, to change the world in some ways.
Athletes and sports organizations taking action.
It was a clear and unequivocal decision from all the players. It was very obvious for us that we have to boycott these games.
FIFA, UEFA, World Rugby, and the International Ice Hockey Federation all banning Russian national teams from participation.
I think that sports has to represent peace, justice. It's not enough to say how sorry you are. We have to react, and we have to show the world that we don't agree with that.
Sports like Formula One, rowing, skiing, and volleyball responded swiftly, canceling events and banning hosting opportunities, quote, until further notice. The World Athletics Council, which oversees track and field, cross-country, race walking, and ultra running, also sanctioning Russian and Belarusian athletes.
I understand that Russian athletes aren't directly involved in that war, but it's also important from their side to talk about it and talk that they don't agree with the war, because war is never a solution.
International Swimming Organization FINA didn't ban Russian and Belarusian athletes, but is requiring them to compete neutrally with no national symbols, colors, or flags. The group also stripped Russian President Vladimir Putin of the FINA Order Award, given to him back in 2014. But the backlash doesn't end here. Several members of the British Parliament called on the owner of English football club Chelsea, Roman Abramovich, a Russian billionaire, to hand over control of the team after almost 20 years at the helm. After handing over control to the team's charitable foundation, he confirmed in a statement Wednesday that he is trying to sell the team. Sports marketing campaigns also being affected. German sports company Adidas halted its 14-year partnership with the Russian Football Union.
Sport is very important. It's a country that in an unreasonable way attacks a other free country in Ukraine shouldn't be allowed to participate in peaceful competitions.
Some Russian athletes think the bans are a, quote, unfair solution. Daniel Kvyat, an Alpine Formula One reserve driver, sharing a post on Twitter that says sports should remain outside politics, and banning athlete participation goes against what sports teaches us in its principle, the unity and peace.
We always say that we shouldn't combine politics with sports. Obviously, I agree up to a point, but tell it to the people who live in Ukraine and their league stopped, their sport. This is not the thing they can think about right now. They fight for their lives.
But some of Russia's most prominent sports stars echo the world's anti-war message.
Please, no more war. It doesn't matter who is in the war, Russia, Ukraine, different countries. I think we live in a world like we have to live in peace.
All right, our thanks to Morgan Chesky for that report.
That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.